Hi, welcome back to the Weekly Why. This week we have Parsha Yitro, one of the best parshas, one of the most interesting parshas, certainly. We have the Revelation in Mount Sinai, we have the Ten Commandments, later they're repeated in Deuteronomy and Devarim, but here we have really probably the most dramatic, or arguably the most dramatic parsha so far, certainly on a macro perspective, not just, battles and whatever, but really the formative moment when Israel became a nation, Israel became Israel. So this is one verse, one pasuk I want to discuss. Very interesting. It says, "In the third month from the exodus of the children of Israel from Egypt, on this day they arrived at the wilderness of Sinai. They journeyed from Rephidim, another location, and they arrived at the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness, and Israel encamped there opposite the mountains." So, at first glance, you can see certainly it's very redundant, again and again. But again, this is what it says. It says here, they arrived, they journeyed, they arrived, they encamped. So there's four verbs. Arrived, journeyed, arrived, and encamped. And Rashi, the commentator, points out that the first three verbs, arrived, journeyed, and arrived, are all plural, whereas the fourth verb, encamped, is singular. So what Rashi says is that the reason for this is because the people, when they encamped, were like, as he says, Ki'ish be'echad belev echad. They were like one person, with one man, with one heart. That's the reason. And I don't think that it's terribly difficult to really extrapolate that and to say that it was only because Israel became one man with one heart did they merit receiving that revelation from God. And so if we want to extrapolate this and bring this into today, I think the point is obvious. The point is that we cannot hope for any kind of revelation or salvation in terms of, the Messianic age or anything like that if we do not have that same level of solidarity. Now, of course, what Rashi says here is that it's one man with one heart. This is not simply a group of people who say, okay, we're working on the same team, we're going for the same thing. It's so much more than that, right? If you're like one man with one heart, you are the same person. There's a level of devekut, of cleaving, of closeness to another person, to everybody, that it's so much more than simply, yeah, this is Bob, we're doing the same job. No. It's like brothers. And so the point here is that, of course, you would say, well, how can I have that level of closeness with people who 90% of whom, are pretty disassociated with Jewish life? How can you have that same closeness? And the point is that it's actually easier than you might think, is that because 90% of the Jewish people are certainly, a large majority of the Jewish people are oftentimes tragically disconnected from the central teachings of what Judaism and the Torah tells us, is that we simply have to give a much more basic love, a Havas Yisrael, love of Israel, simply to say that they are our brothers and sisters, and it's just that simple. And we can say that, we think you're wrong, we think you're terribly mistaken, but we can't judge you right now, and we can't judge you at all. Ultimately, that's not us. But ultimately, the point is that, especially with people who we just aren't even on the same page with at all, and we can't even have that same mission, even for people who it seems like we're enemies and we have totally wrong, totally distant values, we at the same time have to say that we love you as Jews, and only if we reach that point is there any hope for a salvation for all of Israel. So that's it for Parsha Yitro. Best wishes, Shabbat Shalom, God bless.